Alright, I'm going to be casting my dream season of Total Drama with the intention to make a follow-up video that's going to be the actual season if I get the time to write it. But today, I'm going through the characters that I picked out for this season. The cast is going to be 10 guys and 10 girls. And there wasn't a quota like there has to be this many from Gen 1 and this many from Gen 2. Nah. That would lead to some undeserving characters being on the list just to fit the quota. So no, it's a free-for-all. I'm just going to say their name, say why they're on the season, and say what they could potentially bring to the season. Like if they're going to have antagonist potential, maybe a redemption arc, or maybe they're going to be a comedic character. Alright, it's time to get in here. Starting off with the guys, an instant lock for this cast was Alejandro. There was no way that he was going to miss a season like this. He's the perfect mix of gameplay and drama. When it comes to how I'll write the season, I have no intentions on making Alejandro a hero or making him go through a redemption arc. Well, he could use a redemption arc after how he was destroyed in All-Stars, but this will not be redemption into a positive person that everyone likes. He's going to be more like his world tour self in this season, which was the peak of his character. Next up is B. This is a guy that, although he had so much wasted potential and could have been much more, he was still a fun character for the 3 episodes that he competed in with his crazy inventions and strategies. I have no idea right now where I would place him, but he's definitely gonna last for more than 3 episodes. Also, maybe there's something more to him that can be explored, like finding out the reason why B doesn't talk. Maybe he has a villainous side that he's trying to hide. Like he could legitimately be an antagonist on this season, so I'm glad to have him on the cast. Next up is Bowie, and he could have an interesting arc on this season. He could go the less fun route and embrace what the Hockey Bros instilled in him, no cheating or underhanded gameplay. Or the best scenario is that he reverts back to his season 1 self to combat or even work with Alejandro. I haven't figured out what they're going to be yet. Maybe they can start off on the same team and dominate the game, or probably the more likely option would be them starting off on different teams and each team would have a master strategist that's controlling the game, and all of this could culminate in either a merge showdown or a team up. But getting them to interact will be a big focus on this season because they can give so much drama to the show. Next is Brick. Just like all of these characters, I'm not completely sure what role he'll play in this season. I'm not really sure if there's more to explore with Brick. Like his story ended nicely, and it's probably a good thing that he wasn't brought back for All-Stars to get his character derailed and potentially smudge his heroic ending in Revenge of the Island. So he probably doesn't have much to give to this season, but he was a good character in Revenge of the Island, and I'm giving him the callback that he should have got in All-Stars. Next up is Cameron. I'm just going to flat out say that Mike and Zoe didn't make the cut. Cameron was always the most bearable person out of that trio, so I want to see him on his own. Maybe he grows even more as a person without being so attached to those two. Or maybe he's an early exit because he already won the money. I like Cameron, but he's not a big personality like Alejandro and Bowie, and he got a lot of screen time in Revenge of the Island and All-Stars, so he shouldn't take away from B, someone that barely got anything. He probably won't win, but he's a nice guy to have to fill out the cast. Next up is Lightning. He's a guy that I wanted for comedy, but also I saw more uses for him, like potentially being the strongest person and best competitor on this cast, and he could win his team a few challenges, so he would be nice to have around, and he could probably get taken out at the merge, which means he'll get more episodes than I initially wanted to give him. He's probably not going to be a major player in the story that's going on, but like I said, he'll serve his role of being comedy and a challenge beast that can feasibly win challenges without plot armor, which just makes the writing process easier. Next up is Max. He's mainly here for comedy. When I first watched Pocketeer Island way back, I said that he was annoying, but after the rewatch, I like his character. He's a fun guy, so he's mainly here for some laughs, but an interesting idea would be with there being some top tier villainy on this season like Alejandro and Bowie. Maybe if Max ends up on a team with one of them, maybe they can take him under their wing and Max can learn how to be a true villain, which would be a nice redemption arc for him. That wasn't initially in the cards, but it is something to think about for sure. Next up is Ripper. Kind of like some others on this list, this is going to be a return to form. Season 1 Ripper was a funny character, with him always wanting to be in charge and the name calling and all of that. Just get that version of him on screen without all of that farting, then he could be a character that's probably not going to have much story relevance, but he could be a good supporting character for sure. Next up is Scott. The All-Stars version wasn't good, so I want this season to be a return to form for him like he was in Revenge of the Island, especially with Alejandro and Bowie on this season. Maybe in the team phase, he's battling with or against Alejandro and or Bowie. Or an interesting scenario would be at the merge, they talk about how villains barely win. Even when Alejandro won, he got robbed of his money, so maybe they make a pact to stick together and battle it out at the end. Whether they're on the same team or not, these three villains will bring a lot of drama to the show. Finally, rounding out the guys side of this cast is Z. He has potential in this season to be a serious game player, especially if he can surround himself with players like Alejandro, Bowie, and Scott. But even if he flames out early, he's guaranteed to provide some comedy, so he had to make the list. Now for the girls. First up, it's Axel. I love how she was in season 1, but I didn't like her in season 2 because she ended up kissing Ripper all of the time, so I'm looking to make her like she was in season 1 and give her more episodes because there's a good character in her. Despite Ripper being on this season, their love or whatever, it's not really made clear if they're still together or what, but that stuff will probably be brought up at some point, but it's not going to be a big focus like it was in season 2 of the revival. This season is going to be for Axel, so yeah, I'm glad to have her on the cast. Next up is Bridget. I always liked Bridget as a character, but she hasn't done much in the game since Total Drama Island, really just being an aftermatch show host for the majority of her time on Total Drama, so this is a way to get her back into the game without Jeff. He's not a bad character, but she was just always attached to the guy, starting with Total Drama Action, so it's time for her to branch out and make new connections. She's here because she's likable, but she's probably not going to bring the most drama to the show unless she surprisingly latches onto someone like Alejandro, but I don't see that happening after the way that she got tricked by him in Total Drama World Tour. I don't completely know her role yet, but I want her to have some longevity for sure. Next up is Ella. She was one of the best parts of Pocketeer Island with her singing and her overall niceness. I don't want this season to be a complete musical, like world tour, but she can definitely sing some songs on this season. She probably won't be a main character, but she'll be there and she'll have a presence on this season at least. But also, there's potential for her to be a twist villain. That would be a shocker. Also, that could be interesting because of someone else that's coming up on this list, but I doubt it. Ella as is a solid character, so I probably won't change her a lot and she'll just fit in wherever she can fit in. Next up is Gwen. I loved Gwen in season 1, but ever since then, she's always had to operate with some love triangle drama, whether it be with her, Trent, and Duncan, or her, Courtney, and Duncan. So there will be none of that in this season. I liked Gwen's story of being a loner and slowly making friends along the way, but she already got that development, leaving a big question mark for what her role will be on this season, especially since there's no love triangle drama that her character relied on so heavily. Also, she's a former winner and already had 4 seasons. It's not looking like she'll be long for the game, and that's completely fine. Next up is Izzy. She was always going to be a lock for this season. I love her crazy personality. The problem is, I don't want her to just be a comedic character in this season and kind of coast along. I want her to be involved in alliances, be involved in the strategy of the season. And speaking of alliances, there's also a character coming up that I think she should meet. I have no doubt that they'll be best friends. So her story in this season is probably going to be centered around an alliance with that person. Next up is Julia. Honestly, I wanted her to win season 2 of the revival because she would already have a win under her belt and I could get her out quickly to focus on some of my other favorites that didn't get the screen time that she got, but she didn't win. So it's this weird mix of I want her to win, but what about someone like Ella that deserves to be explored more and potentially win? Julia is going to be a nice addition to the season for sure and stir up some drama, but she's probably not going to be a main character this time around. Plus, for season 3 My Way, I wrote her in as an intern so she could stay around the game for the whole run. So I'm not saying that she won't win, but right now I'm more interested in writing for some other characters on this cast, but things could change because there's some good villains on the guy's side that she could team up with. Next up is Lauren, the person that I wanted to pair with Izzy in that alliance. This is going to be a short rundown because I already made her into what I wanted her to be when I made a Total Drama Island Season 3 My Way video. I always liked her as a comedic character, but now it's time for her to take the next step and get involved in the game more and become an antagonist for sure. There's a lot of potential characters that can be antagonists on this season, but Lauren is a priority for sure. I'll be shocked if I don't let her make the merge as well because she's never made it. But yeah, she was always a lock for this season and so was her alliance with Izzy, so I can't wait to write for that. Next up is Lindsay. In the hot takes video that I made, I actually suggested that Lindsay was the most robbed player instead of DJ. So along with her just being a good character, I wanted to bring her back for a fair chance. It doesn't mean that she'll win, like she could still be the first one out again, although that's unlikely, but whatever happens with Lindsay, it's gonna make sense and not derail her character like when she got eliminated in Action and All Stars. Also, since Island, I've always been wanting to see more Izzy and Lindsay interactions, but that never really happened, so I want to get some of that in this season for sure. Also, maybe Lindsay and Julia can hit it off so she has ways to have some longevity in the game and be a relevant character. Next up is Scarlet. Now, if they actually wanted to bring Scarlet back, that would be tough because she tried to destroy Pocketew Island, but in my world, all is forgiven, at least until I can come up with a better rationale. but she gets a second chance here, which is interesting for her because she can use her genius for bad, like what happened in Pocket2 Island, and maybe she can team up with the likes of Scott, Alejandro, Bowie, Lauren, and characters like that. Or she can use her genius for good and combat some of these antagonistic figures on this season, which I lean towards at this moment. A Scarlet redemption arc would be nice. Also, her best friend Max is on this season, so regardless of the path she chooses, I'll try and give them some interactions for sure. Finally, rounding out the girl side of this cast is Sugar. I don't really have big plans for Sugar. She's mainly going to be comedy, and just like most of these other comedic characters that I'm adding in, that's probably just not going to show up in the season unless it actually got made into a legitimate season with a 20 to 30 minute runtime and all that. But she was one of my favorites from Pocket2 Island, so she had to make the list, and at the very least, I want to find something for her and Ella to get involved in so she's not completely off to the side. But yeah, that's everyone that's on the Dreamcast for the season that I'm potentially making. Potentially because at the time of this recording, I don't even have anything written. Plus, when I wrote Total Drama Island Season 3 my way, that took around 2 months. So the plan right now is to make the season, but this isn't going to be released immediately. It's going to take some time. But yeah, that is all for now.